A self-creation without end or pause revealed the grandeur of the infinite. It flung into the hazards of its play, in million moods, in myriad energies. The world shapes that are fancies of its truth, and the formulas of the freedom of its force.
So we'll go back and start. Okay. This is, he's telling us in this book, The Traveler of the Worlds, the Canto 1, which is the world stare. He's speaking of this self creation has no end or pause. And when Mother was asked, is the supermental the final limit? Mother said, no, not at all. This creation will not end or pause. It will always be evolving, and it will evolve from the supermind into Sat Chit Ananda, and even beyond that.
Mhm.
So it's a self-creation without end or pause. And what is it revealing? It revealed the grandeurs, the nobility, the greatness of the infinite.
Mhm.
And Sri Aurobindo tells us in the Life Divine so beautifully that it is a designation of the deity or the absolute being.
Mhm.
He says the infinite is not a sum of things. It is that which is all things and more. And then in Essays Divine and Human, this has always been so important to me. Even the words eternal and infinite are only symbolic expressions through which the mind feels, without grasping, some vague impression of this supreme. So beautiful.
Mhm.
And then it flung into the hazards. Hazards are unavoidable dangers
Mhm.
or risks.
Mhm.
The hazards of its play, what did it fling? A million moods, a myriad energies. Myriad generally is 10,000, but here it just means an infinitely great number of persons or things. It's like an indefinite number.
Understood. Okay.
The world shapes, hyphenated, that are fancies of its truth. So it's flung all of these things, this million moods, myriad energies, world shapes that are just fancies. Fancies in a way, it's a conception, huh?
Mhm.
Almost a caprice or a whim.
Okay.
These world shapes that are just fancies of its truth. And the formulas of the freedom of its force. And we know already that force is nothing but the power of being in motion.
Hmm. Emotion.
So we'll continue on.
Sure, Narad sir. It poured into the ever-stable's flux, a bacchic rapture and revel of ideas,
Good.
a passion and motion of everlastingness. There rose unborn into the unchanging surge thoughts that
Yes, but
abide.
I would read it differently. There rose unborn into the unchanging surge. So not there rose, but there rose What rose? Something unborn rises into the unchanging surge. So it's there rose unborn into the unchanging surge.
There rose unborn into the unchanging surge thoughts that abide in their deathless consequence, words that immortal last, though fallen mute, acts that brought out from silence its dumb sense, lines that convey the inexpressible.
Inexpressible, yes. So we see that these words, even though they fall silent, mute here is silent, words that are immortal, but they last, even though they are silent, mute, acts that brought out from silence its dumb sense. Again, dumb is silent sense. So you have silence and then you have dumb, which are synonymous, sort of.
Yeah.
Because he capitalizes silence. And in a letter on yoga, he says, silence is the absence of all motion of thought or other vibration of activity. Very important.
So, Narad, so like they say, in the meditation, you have to silence the mind, not have any.
Yes.
So that's
Exactly. That's correct. And now he says in a letter on yoga, very interesting statements.
Okay.
It is on the silence behind the cosmos that all the movement of the universe is supported. It is from the silence that the peace comes. When the peace deepens and deepens, it becomes more and more the silence. Lines that convey the inexpressible. And we'll continue on.
Sure. The external stillness saw in unmoved joy his universal power at work display in plots of pain and dramas of delight, the wonder and beauty of her will to be.
Yeah, I thought I heard you say dramas.
Dramas, right?
Drama. Yeah, dramas. No R. Dramas.
Yeah.
So the eternal stillness, we learned about the stillness. And we learned about the eternal, because the eternal is in Sri Aurobindo's yoga. That which is that cannot perish. It can only lose itself. All is eternal in the eternal spirit. Each is the whole eternal concealed. That means all of us are the eternal also, but concealed. And then this beautiful line, the eternal is our refuge. All the rest are false values, the ignorance and its mazes, a self-bewilderment of the soul in phenomenal nature. So the eternal, in his stillness, sees in this unmoved joy his universal power at work. And what is it doing? It's displaying in plots of pain and dramas of delight the wonder and beauty of her will to be.
All, even pain, was the soul's pleasure here. Here, all experience was a single plan, the thousand-fold expression of the One.
So Ashwapati is seeing all of these things when he's on this world stair. And the next lines are very beautiful, so carry on.
Okay. All came at once into his single view. Nothing escaped his vast, intuitive sight. Nothing drew near he could not feel as kin. He was one spirit with that immensity.
I would suggest the previous line.
Mhm.
Nothing drew near he could not feel as kin.
Okay, could not together. Okay.
Yeah.
Nothing drew near he could not feel as kin.
Good.
Nothing
So,
drew near. Okay.
yeah, go ahead.
Nothing drew near he could not feel as kin. He was one spirit with that immensity.
Yeah, but if we beat that line properly
Mhm.
in iambic pentameter,
Mm.
nothing drew near he could not feel as kin. So,
Nothing drew near he could not feel as
no, he could not feel.
he could
So you
not
see,
feel. Okay, could
you
not
can feel something, but he could not feel.
Uh-huh.
So he felt everything as kin.
Oh, okay, right.
That's the idea in the line, that nothing drew near that he could not feel as kin, as one, as family,
Right.
and therefore he was one spirit with that immensity.
Okay. Narad sir, can I read one more time?
Sure.
Okay. I'll read from that nothing escaped.
Very good.
Nothing escaped his vast intuitive sight. Nothing drew near he could not feel as kin. He was one spirit with that immensity.
So already we see that Ashwapati has ascended so high that he is one spirit with that immensity.
Yes.
Because everything is kin to him now, and nothing escapes his vast intuitive sight.
Mhm.
So we have understanding now the whole passage.
Yes.
Good. So let's continue a little more.
Sure. Images in a supernal consciousness, embodying the unborn who never dies, the structured visions of the cosmic self, alive with the touch of being's eternity, looked at him like form-bound spiritual thoughts, figuring the movements of the ineffable.
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 Yes.
Enough.
Now, Sri Aurobindo speaks about this cosmic self in a letter on yoga. And I'd like to share that with you. When one has the cosmic consciousness, one can feel the cosmic self as one's own self. One can feel one with other beings in the cosmos. One can feel all the forces of nature as moving in oneself. All selves as one's own self. There is no why, except that it is so, since all is the one. Very beautiful.
This is from
This is from a letter on yoga.
letter on yoga.
And there is something from the synthesis of yoga also.
Mhm.
But this cosmic self is spiritual in essence and in experience.
Mhm.
It must not be confused with the collective existence, with any group soul or the life and body of a human society or even of all mankind. So you see, it's very different because you have to have the cosmic consciousness
Mm.
so that you can feel this cosmic self as your own self. And then you can feel it with other beings in the cosmos. You can feel all the forces of nature as
Mhm.
moving in oneself, all selves as one's own self. These are very important distinctions.
Mhm.
So we'll go on a little bit more.
Sure.
Alive with the touch of being's eternity, looked at him like form bound spiritual thoughts, figuring the movements of the ineffable. When someone figures a movement, one shapes it, one symbolizes it, or represents it. So when we have a symbol that's other than a letter, it's something that is figured. It can also be an emblem or a type or a symbol,
Mhm.
many definitions, but you understand the line.
Yeah.
Figuring the movements of the ineffable.
Yeah.
Good. And then we have the ineffable. And I think we've done it before,
Mhm.
but in the Life Divine,
Mhm.
he says, the absolute is for us the ineffable. So the absolute, capital A,
Mhm.
is for us the ineffable, capital I. Aspects of being donned world outline. Donned here is put on.
Mhm.
When you don something, you put on a dress or a suit, a coat
Right.
that open moving doors on things divine. Now you have to read those.
Yes. Aspects of being, dawn, world outline, forms that open, moving doors on things divine, became familiar to his hourly sight, the symbols of the spirit's reality, the living bodies of the bodiless grew near to him, his daily associates.
Incredible, huh? The living bodies of the bodiless. Wow. So everything grew near to Ashwapati, and they became his daily associates. So beautiful. Now we have to read from the beginning. Huh?
Sure.
So you read the whole thing.
Yeah. Going back to the page 95, self creation. A self creation without end or pause revealed the grandeurs of the infinite. It flung into hazards of its play in million moods, in myriad energies. The world shapes that are fancies to its truth, and the formulas of the freedom of its force. It poured into the ever stable flux a Bacchic rapture and revel of ideas, a passion and motion of everlastingness. There rose unborn into
No, there rose.
there rose, okay. There rose unborn into the unchanging surge thoughts that abide in their deathless consequence, words that immortal last, though fallen mute, acts that brought out from silence its dumb sense, lines that convey the inexpressible, the eternal stillness saw in unmoved joy his
I
universal
would, I
power,
would pronounce it as eternals. Not,
eternals.
not eternals, but the eternal stillness.
Okay. The eternal stillness saw in unmoved joy his universal power at work display in plots of pain and dramas of delight, the wonder and beauty of her will to be. All, even pain, was the soul's pleasure here. Here, all experience was a single plan, the thousandfold expression of the One. All came at once into his single view. Nothing escaped his vast intuitive sight. Nothing drew near he could not feel as keen. He was one spirit with that immensity. Images in a supernal consciousness, embodying the unborn who never dies, the structured visions of the cosmic self, alive with the touch of being's eternity, looked at him like form bound spiritual thoughts, figuring the movements of the ineffable.
I wouldn't call it eternity. I would call it eternity.
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 Eternity. Yeah.
Yes.
Alive with the touch of being's eternity, looked at him like form bound spiritual thoughts, figuring the movements of the ineffable,
Ineffable.
ineffable,
Ineffable.
ineffable
Yes.
aspects of being, dawned world outline, forms that open moving doors on things divine, became familiar to his hourly sight, the symbols of the Spirit's reality, the living bodies of the bodiless grew near to him, his daily associates.
Good, good reading. I would like you to uh, understand the enjambment of the line aspects of being, dawned world outline, forms that open. You see, forms goes to the next line, but it's jammed because forms has to be in that line to make it iambic pentameter.
Ah,
And so those forms, those aspects of being that dawned outline, semicolon, forms that open moving doors on things divine. Got it? Okay,
yes,
that's
yes.
an enjambed line.
Mm.
Good. So see you next week.
Thank you so much, Narad sir. And thanks for sharing so many different contexts. It helps me a lot. Thank
Thank
you
you.
so much.
Namaste.
Namaste.